Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Everyone, welcome. This is our second learning session. 18 minutes is the plan. In memory of Daniel and Michael Halevi's memory, Zichron Livracha. I think we're being joined by a few more people as we go, but we'll just crack on and they can join us. So if anyone that wasn't able to join last week, I'll just go over something first. But if you want to jump in at any moment, I think if you press *6, that unmutes your line, and you can, if you want to ask a question, if you've got a contribution, and do feel free to do that. But just to keep it sensible and not have lots of background noise, it makes sense just to mute everyone. But do jump in if you want to. So Love Your Neighbour has been specifically chosen as the theme for our session because Daniel was the epitome of loving kindness. And Daniel's greatest strength was his positive outlook, his resilience, and consistency in everything he did. So it basically just gives us a weekly opportunity to remind and train ourselves to be a bit more like Daniel. And we've all got very busy lives, and sometimes it's nice and useful just to take 18 minutes to remember, reflect, and learn. And as I mentioned last week, I plan to initially kind of lead these sessions, but as we go on, I'm more than happy to, for people to contribute and for people to kind of help prepare these sessions with me, and that would be great. That would be lovely. As I mentioned last week, if anyone has any questions that I'm not able to answer, or someone else on the call is not able to answer, then I'm happy to take away any of those questions and ask someone that might know the answer, because I'm definitely not all-knowing. So the idea of these sessions is we're going to look for a character trait that relates to kind of loving kindness, and we're going to look for that in the weekly parsha. So it's all about loving kindness, love your neighbour, but we're looking at it kind of week by week in the parsha. So it's quite focused on that. So I'll dive straight in. So this week's parsha is Parshas Mishpatim. So following the revelation at Mount Sinai, legislates a series of laws for the people of Israel. These include penalties for murder, kidnapping, assault and theft, civil laws pertaining to damages, granting of loans, and also how the court should work. There's also laws against mistreating foreigners, the observance of some festivals, agricultural gifts that should be brought to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. There's also meat and milk, which we're all probably quite aware of, and also the mitzvah of prayer. So there's a lot. There's actually 53 mitzvot in total in this week's parsha. 23 are imperative commandments and 30 are prohibitions. So it's really there's a lot going on. It's action-packed. And in the spirit of this session, we're focusing on loving kindness and loving our neighbour. So we focused on one part, and that part is, it says in this week's parsha that you must not carry false rumours. You should not join hands with the guilty to act as a malicious witness. So you must not carry false rumours. So this is it's a prohibition against accepting Lashon Harah. So some people may have heard Lashon Harah, what that is. If you're in conversations with people, someone might say, "Oh no, that's Lashon Harah. Please don't carry on. I don't want to hear it." So we'll go through very briefly kind of some of the laws of Lashon Harah, what it is, but the laws of Lashon Harah are way too kind of lengthy and detailed to cover in our 18-minute session, and in fact Rabbi Israel Meir HaKohen of Radin wrote an entire book about it, and you probably know him as the Chofetz Chaim, but he's written a whole book about this. I recommend anyone, if you're interested, you've got time, then try and get hold of that, because that really goes through it in detail, and it take you quite a while to work through it, but it's worth it, and you can kind of get under the skin of it. So this is very brief, so it definitely won't do it justice. So I'll go through now some of the kind of elements of Lashon Harah, what it is, and also then practically how we can kind of work with it and see if we can sort of incorporate it in our daily lives. And again, if anyone wants to jump in at any moment with a contribution or question, then do feel free to do so. It's *6, and we'll try and work with it. But we've only got 18 minutes. So, but yeah, please do. So Lashon Harah literally means bad talk. This means that it's forbidden to speak negatively about someone else, even if it's true. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it's okay. Look, it's true. I'm not lying. It's true, so it's okay. I can say it." Well, Lashon is bad talk, and whether it's true or not, in accordance with Judaism and the Torah, it shouldn't be said. The next part is that it's forbidden to repeat anything about another person, even if it's not a negative thing. And this is called rechilus. The Torah forbids us to listen to Lashon Harah, even if you do not intend to believe what is spoken. So even just being part of a crowd, you're not engaging in a conversation, you're just there with other people, and people are speaking Lashon Harah, it's actually forbidden to even hear it. Even if you say, "Oh, I won't believe it," you're still not supposed to listen. If you inadvertently hear Lashon Harah, you're forbidden to believe it to be true. On the contrary, you should always judge someone favourably. You should always think the best of people. It's forbidden to even make a motion that is derogatory towards someone. So sometimes people make a face. If someone says, "Oh, how's the meal?" and they make a face at someone else, that's Lashon Harah. It's you don't have to just use words. It's also your facial expressions. Or if someone says, "Oh, what do you think about Johnny Phillips?" and then you make a funny face. That's also part of this. One may not even retell a negative event without using names if the listeners might be able to work out who it is. So sometimes the way people get around, the not doing Lashon Harah is they think that, "Oh, okay, I won't say any names, but I'll just, I'll tell everyone what it's all about, but I won't say their names." But if people can work out who it is, then obviously that's as bad as just saying their name. The mere listening to Lashon Harah, even without believing it, is very harmful because it encourages the speaker to continue relating that derogatory information. So you're kind of, by standing there and giving them an audience, you're allowing them to you're giving them a stage to speak. If a speaker of Lashon Harah sees that he has an audience for his words, he'll continue. But on the other hand, if it's met with a statement of, "Do you know what? I don't really want to hear that Lashon Harah," then the speaker might realise that that's not the way to go and not do it again. A lot of people ask on this that if I don't believe information that someone tells me, it means that I'm assuming that the person who tells me that information has lied. So, we just said earlier, you're not supposed to believe. If someone tells you a story about, a person, and we said, well, you're not supposed to believe it, even if it's true, you're not supposed to believe it, always think the best of people. This is saying, well, that means you're then saying that that person must be lying, and I thought we judge people favourably. But here, this is Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says, whatever Mr. A tells you that Mr. B did, it's not worse than relating Lashon Harah. How can you believe a statement that is in itself a violation of Torah law? So like we said last week, there's a lot of focus on the kind of mitzvahs between man and God, like keeping kosher or keeping Shabbos. But this Lashon Harah between man and man is, it's just said it here that people are not so aware that violating that is equally as important and serious. In certain circumstances, so there are circumstances where you can speak Lashon Harah. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in now and give a contribution of what you think that might be. Where you might, when is it okay to possibly say something about someone that would normally be Lashon Harah? I'll give it's star 6 if you want to jump in. If not, I'll start us off. So hiring a worker. So if you're going to hire, if someone says to me, "Oh, you know that guy you've got working for you, that Harry, I hear he's good on the computer, but can you tell me a bit about him?" If I know that he always turns up late for work, and he steals from the till, and that's not good stuff, and it's not something I'd normally walk around telling people about, because it's Lashon Harah. But if this person's about to employ him for in a job, he might lose out financially if he takes on this Harry. So I have an obligation to prevent him from losing out financially and having problems. So I could potentially tell him about these issues with this Harry. And there's other examples like this. So, for example, if someone wanted to marry this Harry boy, and they said, look, my daughter, she's going to marry Harry, but can you tell us a bit about him? And if I know that Harry is a serial kind of mistreater of women, or whatever it may be, if I, potentially I could share that information, but it's very strict in terms of when you can share kind of things that would be perceived as Lashon Harah. And there's 7 key conditions, and I'll very quickly go through. So the first is that the speaker, the person who's saying these kind of potentially like Lashon Harah things, the speaker must have witnessed the incident himself. So if I was the owner of the shop and I've witnessed him stealing from my shop or always coming late, then that's the big tick. I've seen it for myself. It's not that someone has told me, oh, he's always late. If you've never seen it for yourself, then it's just rumor. If you have heard it from somebody else, then you have to look into it and verify it firsthand. So you have to make sure you go and watch, a few times. Oh, okay, yeah, he's always late. Because that's the first really important thing. If you didn't see it for yourself, then you can't pass on to step 2. The step 2 is the speaker should reflect very thoroughly on what they're going to say, and they shouldn't hastily kind of conclude a very negative view. So they shouldn't straight away conclude, oh, he steals, or he's a really bad person. And you have to really consider, is the thing I'm about to say, is that like a violation according to the Torah? Has he actually done something that would be negative in the view of the Torah and the Torah law? Has he broken some halachas? So if you've reflected and you're really confident that you think that person has, or it's an issue that kind of relates to that, then you can jump onto step 3. But if it doesn't, and you think, oh, do you know what? It's not great that he always does a certain thing, but it's not actually very severe. It's not so serious. It might annoy me, but it's not so serious. The third one is that the speaker should first approach the person privately. So this Harry person, first they should go and speak to that person privately rather than telling the world, and they should rebuke the person in a gentle language. They say to them, look, I've noticed you're doing this, this and this, and it's not appropriate. You have to try and work it out with the person very privately. You don't want to share that in a public audience so everyone can hear. And you're trying to inspire them to improve their ways. But obviously, if they don't take it on board and don't improve, then you may have to alert other people, or someone that's asking you about it. But first, you have to give them a chance. The fourth one, if you manage to get to the 4th stage, is that you shouldn't exaggerate. A lot of people like to exaggerate, sometimes by accident, kind of something about a person. Oh, Harry, he's always late, always late. Actually, he's only ever been late 3 times, but it feels like he's always late. So you're exaggerating, and it makes him look much worse than really the situation is. So you can't exaggerate. The next one, step 5, is that you should have only pure intentions. So in terms of your communication of that kind of negative issue, or that issue about Harry, that person, whatever it is, you shouldn't do it because you hate him and you want him to fail in life, and that you don't want him to get another job, and you just don't like him. You can't. If you've got that negativity towards the person, then you can't really continue. You have to be just complete pure intentions, and not have any kind of hate or anger towards that person. But if that's the case and you're very pure, you're just trying to do the right thing, and you've passed all the previous steps, then you're on to step 6. So if the purpose of speaking Lashon Harah can be achieved in another way without speaking Lashon Harah, then you shouldn't speak Lashon Harah. So if there's a way of sorting out a problem or answering a question without speaking Lashon Harah, then that's the first option you should take. You should try and avoid it. So you don't necessarily have to say a negative thing that you might be able to say something else that still kind of answers the question but doesn't kind of ruin that person's reputation or bring them down. And then the final number 7 is that by speaking Lashon Harah, if you really have to, because it's an absolute must, it's going to cause someone else a loss, and it's passed all the other tests, you're doing it with a pure heart, then the person that's transgressed or is maybe going to lose out or something, they shouldn't be caused any more damage than deemed appropriate by a Jewish court. So again, this is very high level and we don't have long to cover it, but if they were only really due to pay £100, let's say Harry owed £100 to the shop, it's not fair that because of your Lashon Harah, he's actually going to have to pay £500 because everyone thinks he did more than he did and you exaggerated, and so he should only pay what is due. He shouldn't have to pay more because you've exaggerated. So that's just a very quick whiz-through summary of speaking Lashon Harah, and just kind of reminding us that it is an important part in Judaism, in the Torah. It's in this week's parasha, and just practical things that we can try, that when we're in a situation or in a group of people and people are starting to speak Lashon Harah, is I'd encourage everyone to kind of consider whether they want to be in an environment where people are speaking Lashon Harah, and also not to be afraid to either excuse yourself, try and change the kind of advice that the Chofetz Chaim gives is try and change the subject, or even just say, look, I've got enough faults of my own, I don't need to hear about other people's faults, but try to avoid it at all costs, because it's not the nicest thing to do. So that kind of brings us to the end of our 18-minute learning session in Daniel's memory. If anyone's got any questions or thoughts, then do jump in.
Can Lashon Harah be applied to non-Jews as well as Jews?
What, speaking Lashon Harah about non-Jewish people?
Yeah.
That's like the question from last week about do you have to love, like, help non-Jews as well as Jews? I don't know, to be honest. I think again it's the same answer as last week, that I don't think from a Jewish perspective and from the Torah's perspective, I don't think you'd be liable, for anything. I don't think you would have actually necessarily potentially broken this law about Lashon Harah, but I think from the type of person that's not going to speak Lashon Harah and is going to be careful and be sensitive is probably the type of person that's not going to speak Lashon Harah about anybody, because you can't just one day not be a nice person, the next day be a nice, like, normally I feel like someone who would be careful with their Lashon Harah is going to do that across the board with anyone they meet, and they're going to be very calm and consistent, and that's my thought. Has anyone else got any ideas or thoughts on Lashon Harah? We've had a few latecomers join. So the plan next week is we're going to cover the Jewish view of lying. So what is the Jewish perspective on lying? Is it okay to lie? Are there situations where maybe it is okay to lie?
Yeah.
So we're going to look into
I know.
lying.
No. I shouldn't really be.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. So that's all really for this week. If anyone hasn't got anything else to say, any thoughts or feedback, then then I think we'll close. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
But,
Thank you.